Matrix and welcome to Was a Matrix. My name is Luni and today we're doing your English final exam prep. All you need to do to send us your questions and comments is search for Was a Matrix on all our social media platforms, as well as hit us up on our WhatsApp line. All of the details are on the screen. We've got a cool competition going on for you guys, so please stay tuned to get all of those details later on in the show. I've got Nicolene, our sign language interpreter, as well as Gisao Baga, our awesome teacher. Thank you so much, guys, and over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be standing here again, and today we are doing English paper 2. Remember, we have done an exam guide, paper 2. Today we are doing an exam preparation. Now we're going to go through the slides, but what is important for you today is to actually focus on how to respond to questions and how to go about ensuring that you prepare yourself as best as you can. Let us do this. I'm sure you know by now your paper encompasses 4 sections. You've got section A, which is your novel. You've got section B, which is your drama. Your section C are your short stories, and section D is poetry. I just want to remind you that section A, the novel, covers 2 novels, Cry the Beloved Country, as well as The Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then our drama covers Macbeth, as well as My Children, My Africa. Of course, at school for section C, with short stories, you've got a number of short stories that you have done, but only 2 shall be set out of that section C. And with poetry as well, you will find 2 questions from 2 different poems. Please remember, in literature, we have got what we call building blocks of literature. Now, this is what examiners are going to be using in ensuring that they ask you questions relevant to all the literary papers or all the aspects that they need to ask you. Remember, the first one is setting. Setting is about where and when whatever text takes place. And we've got narrator. Narrator is about a viewpoint. Who is telling us the story? It can be someone within the story itself, as in a character within the story, or it can be someone standing outside of the story. We also have the different character traits of the different characters. And then, of course, these characters can cause conflict while the story takes place. Please learn to differentiate between inner conflict, outside conflict, and conflict with nature or with the world. And then, of course, I remember we spoke about plot, which is basically how the story is sequenced. The story has a certain sequence of events, and so this is what we call plot. Number 6 are your figures of speech. We will go in depth with this because today our lesson is mostly about figurative use of language. And then we've got tone. And remember, we spoke about in the guide how tone is about the emotion or the feeling someone has when they are saying certain words. And lastly, but not least, we have theme. And this is the message that the story tells us in general, either from the writer or author's point of view or from the characters who are within that story itself. I just want to concentrate on about 4 of these. And this is setting, narrator, characters, and plot. I need you to know that in your paper 2, for you to prepare for it, your examiners are going to ask you from these aspects. They are going to ask you questions that weigh about 1 mark or 2 marks. For example, you may be asked in question 1 to fill in the missing words, where they will be asking you about who are the characters and what they are doing. They may also ask you about where and when the story takes place. This is where your 1 mark questions will be coming from. Sometimes you may get a table where you will be told to match column A with names or words that are in column B. So please note that today we are not going to deal with that because I need to deal with aspects that are more complex. So these ones, you have no reason to get them incorrect because they are quite simple questions. We also have what we call plot. Plot will also be asked not just on its own, but in conjunction with conflict. So please, when you are studying for your paper 2, ensure that you go into these building blocks and learn for each genre, be it a novel, be it a short story, be it a drama, be it your poems. Please make sure that all these questions you practice as much as possible to ensure that these level 1 questions that we call, you get them right no matter what. In this exam prep today, we are going to concentrate mostly on figures of speech, or what we call figurative language. I'm also going to deal with tone, and tone is, as I have said, the way people speak, the emotion, the thought, the feeling that they will have. We will also go into theme. Now, these aspects that I have mentioned in just now, in a few seconds ago, I need you to understand that these are questions that may require you to give to a substantive or substantiate response towards, because they carry 2 marks and up to 3 marks, sometimes 4 marks in the paper. And that is why today's lesson is going to concentrate on that, so that at least you can get a better view or a better skill on answering these questions. So normally when it comes to questions that require you to give reasons, to explain, to discuss, or even to give your point of view, this means that you need to give a substantiated response. And the only way you can do this is to use what we call the peel method. What is a peel method? This is a best tip in answering those high-level questions and sometimes the level 2 questions. With the peel method, what you need to do is, when you are told to give a full discussion or a full explanation, what you do is, first of all, you give the point. Give the point of whether you agree and whether this information is effective or appropriate. Yes, it is appropriate. Yes, it is effective. I definitely agree. Give a point to support why you are saying you agree or why something is effective. But of course, after that, give an example to support your point. And remember, the example must always come from the context of your literature text. You cannot come up with a point that is within the world itself. You have to always refer within your genre for your example. And then explain why you feel that this example is appropriate for you, the point you've made. And eventually, you link all these concepts together. Your point, your example, and your explanation, you link them together. And eventually, please remember, never write in point form unless told to do so. What you need to do is write in a paragraph form where every point comes after a full stop, because at the marking center, we are going to mark your substantiation with that full 3 marks at the bottom or the last full stop. No one will give you a tick for a point that you make, which is not similar to the entire conclusion of the statement you have developed. With figurative language, remember I spoke to you about how we are going to learn today mostly about figurative language. Please remember that writers make conscious decisions about the language they write. Remember, literature is about things that we have experienced in life. It is about dreams that we want to achieve one day. So we create these stories and we make people enjoy the stories that we write. So when writers write a particular piece, be it a novel, be it any form, poetry or drama, they always make conscious decisions on the language they use. That is why you need to be able to identify what language, the figurative language they use. Please remember that the only way that writers can make these decisions about the language they use is through what they call imagery. Okay, so what this figurative language means, it means that they use what we call imagery. Imagery is when writers make you visualize the words that they are writing. They want you to feel, they want you to see, they want you to hear, they want you to think about or understand more clearly and wildly what a writer is trying to convey. So they use all these senses. You see, you hear, you taste, you feel, you think. As you are reading the words that they have written, you actually become part of the picture because you visualize what they are trying to convey to you. As a reader, you must be able to identify use of figurative language. What this means is you need to be able to identify, this is irony, this is simile, this is tone, this is theme. Don't just know the simplest building blocks. No, don't just know setting or characters. Know more by using your skill of identifying figurative use of language. Let us look at some of the examples of figurative language. I believe almost all of these you can understand them, you know them by now, you have been taught them at school. I need you to understand in this exam prep, if you go into the exam room not knowing the different figurative language, you are definitely not going to get marks. So please ensure that it doesn't matter which genre you use or you are reading at school. Make sure you know the different figurative language. Let us start with comparisons. There are 3 figures of speech that talk about comparison. One is simile, one is metaphor, and the other is personification. By now, you should know the difference between simile and metaphor. The difference is quite simple. However, you should know that a simile, you recognize it with the word like or the word as, and metaphor doesn't have that. Personification, of course, is when you give human qualities to an object that doesn't have human qualities. And then opposites. Opposites, there are 2 of these figures of speech, irony and sarcasm. And when you use either of them, you need to understand that it is when someone is saying something, but the opposite of what they are saying applies. And then we have sounds. Normally we find these in poetry and of course other subjects that use these sounds. Onomatopoeia, assonance, alliteration. Alliteration is repetition of consonant sound. Assonance is repetition of vowel sound. And onomatopoeia is when a word is written in the way it sounds. And lastly, we have these 2, hyperbole and euphemism. Hyperbole is when you exaggerate a particular event. And euphemism is when you say something in the most subtle way you can, just to be kind. We are going to stop here for now. I shall see you now.
Thank you so much, Baka. Guys, we are going to take a quick break, so please don't go anywhere. We'll see you straight after this. back from the break, Matrix. If you've just joined us, we are doing your final exam prep to help you with the upcoming exams. If you're someone who's constantly running out of data, then this next competition is just for you. Waza Matrix is bringing you the hashtag WazoWinner competition, where 2 lucky Matrix stand a chance to win 2 gigs of data. All you need to do to enter is head on over to our Facebook page and all of the details will be there. Thank you so much, Kesalbaka, and over to you.
Welcome back. Learners, now that you've had an overview of what the paper basically entails, I expect that by now you should know that setting, narrator, characters, conflict, plot, these are some of the questions that definitely you must get correct. We are going to go into more detail now with 1 novel as well as 1 drama. And we will be looking at the aspects that I stated before on figurative language, that is figures of speech, tone, theme, stage direction. We are going to look at that in how examiners pose their questions and how they expect you to respond. Let us start with the novel. Cry the Beloved Country. Now, we have taken an extract from your previous paper, and this is a paper where I would like for us to please take a minute and seconds and read this extract. This is an extract where Kumalo, Mr. Kumalo, arrives at Mr. Msimango's house. Obviously, he had been invited to come and find out what is wrong with the daughter Gertrude. Then because Msimango did not speak, he asked anxiously, "Is she very sick?" Msimango said gravely, "Yes, she is very sick. But it is not that kind of sickness. It is another, a worse kind of sickness. I sent for you, firstly, because she is a woman that is alone, and secondly, because her brother is a priest." I want you to look at this extract. We are going to go into a question about this extract. So here is the question with reference to the extract that we have just read. It says, explain the irony in Msimango and Kumalo's discussion in lines 2 to 3. Let us go back into the extract. Msimango says, Kumalo says, "Is she very sick?" Do you see that? And Msimango says, "She is so sick." Now, if someone says somebody is sick, what automatically happens to you? You believe that that person needs medication or maybe a doctor of sorts. But then in the discussion about Gertrude, who is so sick, it is ironic that they are saying she is very sick. And what your examiner wants you to talk about is, what is the irony of them saying that she is so sick? And here is a possible response you can give. Kumalo thinks that Gertrude is very ill because they say she is very sick. Yet, what we now realize as we read the extract is that she's not sickly like normal people are or can be sick. She has an illness of having many husbands. That is what her sickness is. She's a single woman, but involved with many men instead of one. And unfortunately, if a woman is seen to be doing that, being involved with many men, that is considered some sort of sickness. And that is the irony. I need you to understand how to find irony. If your response, when you are answering a question on irony, if your response does not have this word, yet, or if it doesn't have a word, but, or if it doesn't have a word, however, it means you haven't answered the question substantially. So what you need to do is do what? Give the point of what they are discussing. Remember the peel script, the peel concept. What you do is you give the point. They believe she's ill, right? That is the point. But her sickness is of a different sort. It is a kind that is not regular, like those people who need doctors. Her sickness is of being involved with too many men, and that is why she's sick. We'll go to the next extract. Okay, let us look at the questions on tone. This is another form of figurative language. Here's an extract. An extract reads, still on Khumalo and Msimangu, Cry the Beloved Country. He looked at Khumalo. It would be truer to say, he said that she has many husbands. That would be a better statement instead of saying she's gravely ill. Khumalo said, Tiko, Tiko. She lives in Claremont, not far from here. It is one of the places in Johannesburg. Now you may get an extract like this, which is obviously connected to the one we just read. The first part of the extract, we responded to a question on irony. Here, I'm going to show you how to respond to a question on tone. Let us look at what tone is before we actually look at the particular question. A writer may use a subtle way to express his thoughts or her thoughts and feelings of a speaker, a narrator, or a character. When a writer does that, this is what we call tone of a text. Now, when your characters that you're reading about or that are talking in your story, or that the narrator that is relaying the story to you, the way they speak, the emotion they use, the writer will express that in feeling or thought or emotion. And that is how we find tone. And tone can be recognized with the choice of words. We call this diction. The choice of words the writer uses in his or her writing. Tone can also be recognized with point of view, the writer's view, and how it affects her writing. That is where we can find our tone. Tone can also be identified with syntax, the arrangement of the words to create sentences. Lastly, tone may also be recognized with the writer's formality, as in the register of formal or informal use of language. This is where we can find tone. Now, let us go into our question. Remember the extract. It says, he looked at Khumalo. It would be truer to say, he said that she has many husbands. Khumalo said, Tiko, Tiko. She lives in Claremont, not far from here. It is one of the worst places in Johannesburg. So the question will be phrased like this. Refer to the line where Khumalo goes, Tiko, Tiko. What tone of voice? Remember tone. You find it with diction, with syntax, with the writer's view, with the writer's language use, formal or informal. What tone of voice would the person use when saying these lines? Now picture yourself through imagery. You can actually tell how Khumalo is feeling. So what you must give as a response is about the words, the way they come out of his mouth. How is he feeling? What emotion is he going through? Remember that he's just been told his daughter has several husbands. So when he says these words, this is the kind of tone he could be using. Anger, frustration, disbelief even, shock, He's even upset. How could his daughter be behaving so immorally? So this man is in shock. That is the tone he's using when he exclamates those two words, tiko tiko. We can also go back and ask another question. Give a reason. Remember when we started, I told you that these questions will need you to peel the answer, which means give a point and then explain your point. That is why your examiner will make sure that they give you 1 mark for identifying the tone, and your examiner will give you 2 marks for giving a reason why you chose that is the appropriate tone that he is using. So give a reason why Reverend Khumalo would use this tone. Which tone is that? The tone of anger, frustration, disbelief, shock. He is upset. Now, you cannot respond to this question if you did not write the correct tone here. Obviously, eventually, your response for giving a reason will be thrown off if your tone was wrong. Let's say, for example, you said, he is sad, instead of saying he is shocked. Automatically, when you have to give a reason, your response on A has thrown off your response on B. Therefore, be careful on the kind of responses you give so that you get both answers correct. So here is a typical response for why he is upset. I've already alluded to the fact that he is upset because his daughter Gertrude has got so many men in her life. She lives alone. And so this is an immoral act. And that is why, as a reverend, he cannot fathom, he cannot understand how a young woman of Gertrude's position in life as a daughter of a priest could behave in such a way. Okay, let us go to the next reason and the next explanation on there is a difference between tone and mood. Please, when you are in a room and your parents are fighting, the atmosphere that they create of fear and maybe tension, that's what's called mood. When a writer writes, they make their characters say things, and that makes the atmosphere of the room change. Sometimes the atmosphere can be of joy. For example, if a new baby comes into the house, there's definitely not going to be anybody crying because of sadness. They will be crying from joy. That's called mood. So please don't confuse mood with tone. Tone is the emotion they use when they speak. Mood is what is created because of the words that are spoken. So this is what I need you to look at. Mood refers to the feeling or the atmosphere that the author is describing. So obviously, you can read a sentence and feel sad, or you can read a sentence and feel happy, or you can read a sentence and feel angry. Identify the figure of speech in this line. Okay, now, before we go into this one, I want to remind you, already we have seen a question where an examiner will give you the figure of speech, like they did with irony. In Khumalo and Simangu's statement, the examiner said that it is ironic what they are saying. You've been given the figure of speech. However, in other texts, you will be expected to give the figure of speech yourself, which means that you need to be conversant with your figurative language. We're going to go into My Children, My Africa in very soon. But before we do, I just want you to read one last extract where you have to supply the figure of speech rather than the examiner has given you the figure of speech. Let us look at this sentence. Identify the figure of speech in this line. What you need to see is that you've been given identify, so you will give the correct figure of speech, but then remember the peel method. explain how this figure of speech is relevant. Why did you choose this figure of speech as the one that is appropriate for your response? So we are going to go into this one in a few minutes. Over to Luni for now.
Thank you so much. Matrix, let's take a quick break. Please don't forget to enter the competition, as well as send us your questions and your comments so that we can assist you as best as we can. We'll see you shortly after the break. Welcome back from the break, guys. I hope you're still enjoying the show. I'm not going to waste any more time. I'll take us straight back to Geselbag.
Welcome back. I believe you remember when I last saw you a few minutes ago, we were talking about how an examiner may not always give you the figure of speech, but will expect you to give the figure of speech. And we see this in this question, identify the figure of speech. We also see it and explain how this figure of speech is relevant. Let us look at a question, or in fact an extract that we can rely on to respond to this question. We are still on Cry the Beloved Country. She lives in Claremont, not far from here. It is one of the worst places in Johannesburg. After the police had been there, you can see the liquor running in the streets. You can smell it. You can smell nothing else wherever you go in that place. I have underlined this question because it is the reference they wanted to give us in the question. Okay, identify the figure of speech in this line. So this line, when you look at it, it says, you can see the liquor running in the streets. If you know your figurative language, you should be able to identify immediately that this is a figure of speech called personification. I have explained to you that personification is one of the comparisons figurative language. This is where you give a non-living object, you give it human qualities. Now, you know that only people run or animals run. Liquor doesn't run in the street. And so you need to realize that this is where you get your response from. The liquor is running. That is why our response is going to be personification. But remember, we don't stop there. You need to go into the second question and explain why this figure of speech is effective. So you explain how it's a particular thing has been given human qualities. Let us see how best to respond to it. This is how you explain it. We believe that this is an effective figure of speech because it emphasizes how much beer is being consumed in that area. Liquor doesn't run, so if you find that liquor is running, it means there is far too much of it, that you can even smell it in that place. So you can, of course, when you are writing as a learner, explain that liquor is being given human qualities, but then further state, it emphasizes how much of it is there, because only things that are flowing in the street are cumbersome. Let us look at an extract from My Children, My Africa. This is where Tammy and Isabel speak, and they discuss school matters. They have just met and they want to get to know one another. And so in Tammy's speech, he says, it's not as simple as passing exams, Isabel. School doesn't mean the same to us that it does to you. Now, what you need to recognize with these characters is that obviously Tammy is a black learner and Isabel is a white learner. And when Tammy says, it's not as simple as passing exams, Isabel, School doesn't mean the same thing for us as it does to you. You need to realize that there are different dynamics when it comes to each of them, where they come from, which schools they attend, and whether they want to pursue education further or not. And so we shall go into the question. The question states, what does Tammy imply? I need you to look at this word imply. To imply basically means that he is saying something, but he's not divulging it word for word what he means. So he is making a statement, but implying, as in inferring something. So Isabel has to deduce what he means by school doesn't mean the same for us as it does for you. Now the examiner wants you to come up with that response. When he says something like that, what does he imply? Okay, let us look at the response. This is what he implies, and you need to give a response from both the perspective of what Tammy feels school is for him and a perspective of what he feels school is for Isabel. Because he mentioned school doesn't mean the same for us as it does for you. So he needs to explain both points of view, what exactly he's implying. So here's the answer. For Tammy, the black learner in matric, the future is uncertain. He is unsure if he will go to university, or he's even unsure which field of study he wants to pursue. And then for Isabel, this is what he means. She is certain. Do you see the difference between them? He's uncertain, she is certain of the university she will go to. And she even is certain of the program or the field of study she wants to pursue. So that is what he's implying. However, these words in the extract go on further, where Tammy becomes quite frustrated because Isabel is naive about his situation as a black township learner and the fact that she believes that they are on an equal basis. Let us go to the next question. The next question states, we are going to go into the next question, but obviously it has to do with another extract. Let's look at it. Okay, let's look at this extract. This extract is still Isabel and Tammy talking. Isabel says, what does Mr. M say? Mr. M is their teacher. He's mainly Tammy's teacher, but he's brought them together to work not only in a debate against one another, but he's brought them to work in a literary quiz together. So because Tammy feels that his future is uncertain, he doesn't see any future in pursuing studying. He actually wants to boycott classes. So that is why Isabel will ask, but what does Mr. M say? Let's read it. And Tammy says, it's got nothing to do with him. Who is he referring to? He's referring to Mr. M. It has nothing to do with him. What is the it that he's talking about here? He's talking about the fact that he doesn't care about school anymore. He wants to join the boycott. So Isabel is quite concerned. But what about your teacher who believes in you so much? Have you ever thought of his opinion? And that is why Tammy gets very short-tempered and upset and says, it's got nothing to do with him. Now, please remember as he's saying this, when you are reading, think about tone. Think about the tone. Obviously, Tammy is angry. He doesn't want any involvement of Mr. M in his life. So remember tone here. But Isabel continues and says, but you are his favorite teacher, aren't you? But then you see that Tammy has a non-committal shrug. I want you to see this way. A non-committal shrug. This means that his body language does this. He's not committed, whether I'm his favorite teacher or not. Do you see that body language? Now, you are going to be given clues in your paper as your writer gives you an extract. They will give you clues of some of the things they want you to say. And they will do this with how the play, for example, has been structured. So we're going to go into a question that refers to this statement. It's got nothing to do with him. Sorry. This is the question. If you were the stage director, what would you tell Tammy to do? What would you ask him to do while he's saying it's got nothing to do with him? What would you tell him to do? Please be careful, babies. When you see the statement, if you were the stage director, what does this mean? It means that now you are the one who's going to give your characters feelings and emotions and movement and body gestures, facial expressions. You are going to make them do things. Remember, the words they are saying have already been given to you. So as an examiner, no examiner will ever ask you, what would you ask them to say? Remember, they're already saying what they want to say. Now what you need to do is add a particular body movement or a particular facial expression that when they say those words, they would use that gesture or facial expression or body movement in saying this. So for example, if I say, stay away from me, I cannot say it with a smile on my face. I'm going to say, stay away from me. I will shout, I will frown, I will be angry, I will point my finger. So remember, your stage direction means tell the character what to do when they are saying these words. So this is what the question states. Never ever give a character extra words to say. All that Tammy said was, it's got nothing to do with him. You can't add and say, tell him to leave me alone. No. You must now tell the examiner, what should he do when he says these words? And this is what you may ask Tammy to do if you were the stage director. Shrug his shoulders. Now I want you to look particularly at this point here. Remember, after Tammy had said, it's got nothing to do with him, Isabel said, but you are his favorite learner. And I want you to remember that in the extract itself, they told us non-committal shrug. Do you see this is where they're giving a clue of what he could do? So it's very easy for you to pick up. Read everything. Don't try and think too hard. Read the words. You may actually be given an answer in the extract itself. So here is an answer. I would tell Tammy to shrug his shoulders. I would tell him to point at Isabel with a shaking finger. It's got nothing to do with him. You can say that to make Tammy do that. You can make Tammy stare into space with showing deep thought. It's got nothing to do with him. You can literally make him do anything, but of course you have to choose one. You can't make him stare into space and point at the same time. That won't make sense. You can make him throw his hands to the sides. You can actually open his eyes well. It's got nothing to do with him. Do you understand? That's what it means when they say, if you are a stage director, what would you make him do when he's saying these words? Let's continue. Now, please remember, you will be given multiple choice questions. Choose the correct answer. This is a very important question that all the genres are going to have. Learn to choose the correct answer, by deciding which of the 4 that you shall be given is correct. Please, I'm going to stress this one more time. Never guess the answer. And never leave an answer, a question unanswered. One of these is correct. The examiner would never give you this question and give you the responses without giving you the answer. How do you feel about Mr. M at this point in the play? Here is a question, okay? How does Tammy feel? Not how do you feel. How does Tammy feel when he says it's got nothing to do with him? What do you think he's feeling? Obviously the answer is C. He is not very happy with him. He is angry. Okay. Now, it's very important that we talk about theme. Theme is the message that the writer is trying to give us. Normally a theme, it is best expressed as a statement rather than a word. So in My Children, My Africa, you'll find that the theme is education, right? And then in other stories, you'd find that the theme is a long statement. Please remember that when you are asked to express theme, what causes the struggle? What do they talk about mostly, okay? And we can look at a question. Education is one of the themes in the play, as in My Children, My Africa. Discuss it fully. And here is a response. It is a theme because Mr. M believes in education. He's frustrated and desperate, and he uses a register, he uses a dictionary to show how passionate he is about it. He even involves the children in a literary quiz. I hope what we've done today will help you ace your examination. Thank you so much for listening in. We shall see you soon.
Thank you so much, Kisalbaka Matrix. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We're wishing you everything of the best for the exams, and please remember to use all of our resources to help you prepare. Congratulations to all of our competition winners who will be announced on Facebook after the show. And if you missed any of our shows, they are available on our YouTube channel, and you can check out our schedule on www.wazamatrix.co.za. But then from me, Luni, Nicolene, and Kisalbaka, thank you and goodbye.
Matric class of 2020, congratulations for being so brave, so committed, and for staying the course during one of the most difficult years in our history. We're here to support you all the way. Our Was a Matric campaign was set up to support you up until the 8th of December 2020. We are offering you interactive exam guides, shows on SABC3, DSTV, Catch Up, and OVHD Channel 122 that are not to be missed. I wish you all the best in your final exams. You are the hope and the future of our country, and we're so proud of you for coming this far. No matter the outcome, you are at the finish line. Now give it your very, very best. And I thank you.